How did a family of 7 live on a single salary in the early 20th century in the United States? At the beginning of the 20th century, thousands of American families barely survived on a single wage. A household of 7 lived on the modest earnings of a factory worker. Harsh conditions, long shifts, and minimal pay shaped daily life. This video shows how Americans lived 100 years ago, with the most unusual and shocking jobs saved for the end. A century ago, postal workers were the backbone of communication in the United States. Every letter, every newspaper, every message passed through their hands. The pay was modest but steady, which meant survival, not comfort. A family of 7 lived simply, counting every dollar. Clothes were repaired again and again, meals were basic, and nothing was wasted. Children often helped the household by delivering newspapers, running errands, or taking small jobs after school. Life was predictable, strict, and built entirely around saving enough to make it to the next week. Milk delivery workers started their days long before sunrise, moving quietly through empty streets while most of the city still slept. Their wages allowed families access to fresh milk and basic food, but nothing more. In households with 7 people, every expense was carefully planned. Homes were modest, furniture was minimal, and only the essentials were owned. Unnecessary spending was avoided completely. Clothes were passed down from older children to younger ones. Meals were simple and repetitive, and saving money was not a choice, but a daily necessity. Shop clerks earned a bit more than factory workers, but supporting a family of 7 still required constant thrift. Most lived close to their small stores, saving money on transportation and working long hours, often without days off. Every expense was carefully calculated. Many everyday necessities were made at home. Bread was baked in simple ovens, candles were poured by hand, and food was preserved for months ahead. Comfort was limited, and rest was rare, but careful planning helped these families survive from one paycheck to the next. Seamstresses earned modest wages, but their work was exhausting and never truly finished. Long hours were spent bent over sewing machines or stitching by hand in poor light. Every dress, coat, or shirt directly affected the family budget. Clothes were repaired, resized, and reused until the fabric gave out. Their homes were often a bit tidier than others, and their children sometimes wore new or freshly altered clothes sooner than their neighbors. Still, comfort was limited, and every earned dollar had a clear purpose. In the 1920s, teachers were respected members of their communities, even though their salaries remained modest. A family of 7 lived carefully, planning every expense in advance. Despite financial limits, education offered hope for a better future. Teachers often worked after hours, preparing lessons late into the night or tutoring neighbors' children to earn extra money. Life in these households was simple, disciplined, and structured, with more order and routine than in many working-class homes. Cars symbolized a new era, and skilled mechanics quickly became highly sought after. Their earnings often surpassed those of teachers or shop clerks, giving families a slightly higher standard of living. A household of 7 could afford better clothing and, in rare cases, even an old used car. However, the work was dirty, physically demanding, and dangerous. Long hours in poorly equipped garages took a toll on health, and the cost of feeding and housing a large family still consumed most of the income. Stove builders and brick masons worked closely with fire and stone, crafting the hearths and stoves that kept homes warm through harsh winters. Their pay was average, but work was highly seasonal. Summers often brought very little, while winters demanded long, exhausting days. Families of 7 had to plan carefully, saving money during the busy months to cover the leaner times. Life was unpredictable, filled with fluctuations in work and income, but it offered a degree of independence and pride in skilled craftsmanship. Telegraph operators managed the information networks of their time, ensuring messages and news reached their destinations quickly and accurately. The job demanded precision, focus, and speed, yet it provided a steady income. While their families were not wealthy, they benefited from a more comfortable lifestyle, including indoor work and access to information. Children in these households were more likely to attend school and pursue education, gaining opportunities that were often out of reach for families in more labor-intensive or outdoor jobs. Telephone switchboard operators were symbols of the new technological age, connecting people across towns and cities. Their work demanded constant concentration, dexterity, and coordination. While their pay was enough to support a family, it offered little in terms of luxury. Many operators lived in small apartments and carefully budgeted every dollar. Yet, having access to the latest technology, telephones, switchboards, and communication networks made daily life feel a little more modern and advanced compared to other households of the time. Photographers in the 1920s blended artistry with the latest technology, capturing memories and portraits for families and businesses. Their earnings were often above average, yet the work was unpredictable, depending on client demand and seasonal trends. A family of 7 could never be certain of a steady income, making every dollar count. Homes of photographers were filled with creativity, shelves stacked with books, sample portraits, and vintage cameras. Children grew up immersed in art and imagination, even though money was always tight and luxuries were few. Cowboys and cattle hands led a roaming and unpredictable life, moving across plains and ranches with the herds. Their earnings fluctuated depending on the season and the size of the cattle drive. A family of 7 often had to survive solely on the wages of the lead ranch worker, which meant living amidst dust, horses, and constant travel. Homes were extremely simple, offering little comfort, but children grew up learning responsibility, independence, and the skills needed to thrive in a demanding and ever-changing environment. Gas prospectors worked in places where few dared to venture: swamps, steaming pits, and naturally venting gas fields. Their job was to locate potential sites for future extraction, a task full of risk and uncertainty. While the pay was high compared to other professions, families of 7 lived with the constant fear of losing their sole provider. Every day brought danger, and though they had an income, life remained unstable, unpredictable, and hazardous. At the extreme end of dangerous jobs were the so-called poison testers, early industrial chemists who handled toxic substances directly. They worked barehanded, without masks, inhaling fumes and testing chemical reactions by touch. The pay was high, but life expectancy was short, and accidents were common. Families of 7 could live comfortably for a time, yet every day was filled with fear, never knowing if their provider would return home. This was the harsh and chaotic reality of the era, where survival and income came at a truly dangerous price.